Donald, a serious candidate, Democratic strategist Joe Listingy, and Republican strategist Ian Pryor join me now for a very fair and balanced debate. Some of his sound bites there, I do sort of have to chuckle a little bit. I want to start with you, Joe, because we heard Donald Trump earlier this week. He was criticizing Jeb Bush, and I don't know what is more condescending, when he was criticizing Jeb Bush, or then he went back and said he apologized because he felt like he roughed him up.
Yeah, this is primary politics at its best, right? They're eventually going to have to go at each other because they're going to have to draw contrast. And I think the worst thing that came out of this, though, were the statements that he made during that speech where he talked about Mexicans being rapists and things along those lines, and then no Republican has stood up to him yet. And that's a problem. And I think Jeb actually has an excellent opportunity to take a stand for his Hispanic community in his home state of Florida and begin to squash Donald Trump's hopes.
Ian, what do you think about the back and forth? What's your response?
You know, I think what Joe says there, the worst thing about the comments was that Hillary Clinton immediately tried to politicize those by connecting them to the tragedy in Charleston. That's just appalling. I mean, that's more of the same with Hillary Clinton trying to score points, doing whatever it takes to get elected, and it's sad.
Speaking of Hillary Clinton, like you said, she did get into the fray this week, but and we have heard Donald hit her pretty hard too. But do you think she's going to come out swinging a little bit harder against the Republicans, and the fact there are so many in the field?
Well, right now she's got to start coming out swinging against Bernie Sanders. I mean, this is somebody who is pulled to within 10 points of her in New Hampshire. He's drawing bigger crowds than she is, and he's pulled her so far to the left on, say, trade, something that she supported when she was Secretary of State, and now she's trying to, she's trying to cute her way out with things like this is a process vote, in order to appeal to her Democratic base that is riled up by Bernie Sanders right now.
Joe, I see you laughing.
Well, no, I mean, it's funny because we're talking about her being pulled to the left, but Donald Trump, the most recent announcement, was so anti-trade in his speech that it's kind of funny. You're wondering, where do white, middle-class, blue-collar workers go that are anti-trade usually now? They are competing in the Republican Party against this anti-trade wing, but that's kind of almost full circle back to where we just said Hillary was. So it's an interesting fight to see this coming out. Donald is shaking up this field, and he is going to make the 12 candidates duke it out over these issues.
But Hillary didn't really come out with a steadfast opinion on the trade deal.
Well, she came out with plenty of steadfast opinions when she was Secretary of State, when she was 100% backing this trade deal. And now she just won't give an answer. She will not give an answer. She does not want to be tied down because she's hoping that when the general election comes around, she can change her position and that the Internet will somehow forget. But it's not going to. We're in 2016. They're going to remember how far to the left she went, and she's going to pay the price in the general.
Do you think that she's flip-flopping? Or has the potential to flip-flop?
As Secretary of State, she has a job that's to represent the president's interests and negotiate for that trade deal. As a candidate, she's allowed to take a slightly different position if that's what she believes. I mean, when you are a cabinet-level member, your job is to work for the president. The president asks on you to come and represent him. So, yeah, I think on this position, she's come out with what the House, Nancy Pelosi and the minority leader have come out in support of that position. On the legislative fight, they're not going to fast-track this bill. They're going to have a real debate, and it's going to come up for a vote.
Okay.
So she'll announce her position then.
I do want to squeeze in one more question because it's fitting for the time, and I'll go to you, Ian. We see the Freedom and Faith Coalition hitting D.C., and a lot of the Republican candidates are trying to reach the evangelical voter. At the same time, I read a report this week that not many Americans, or as many Americans, are identifying themselves with Christians, but we still see a huge push by contenders to reach that vote. Why is it so important?
Well, I think it remains an important vote in both the Republican primary and in the general election. And I think Christian values, whether people identify as Christians or not, are still something that is important in America. And I think Republicans and Democrats would be wise to embrace that as well.
Yeah, I don't see as many Democrats.
Well, this is interesting, and this is the shift in the demographics of this country. Millennials, which will soon be the largest generation in the voting bloc, identify less with particular religions and more as spiritual. So this push for evangelicals is another symptom of the Republican Party's push for their base in the primary. And it's important. If I was a candidate or advising a candidate in the Republican primary, this is my go-to. This is the group that is steadfast and reliable, and if I win them, I win the nomination, and that's the first step. When we get to the general, though, they're going to have to nuance that because the evangelicals do take some positions that force them to then come to their side, whether it be on choice or women's issues or, in some cases, even immigration issues and things along those lines.
Well, luckily it's a marathon, so we'll have a lot more of these discussions. Joe, Ian, thank you both very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks.